Okay, so I have a really beautiful quote, or a couple of really beautiful quotes to read. Brought a little bit more than a couple. So I think these things are really important for us to reflect on in our daily life. It's really important we don't just be busy all the time, and don't set aside some time for meditation and reflection, because time goes fast, right? It was, like, I don't know how any of you feel, but when your birthday comes around, it's like, oh really? Or now, right? It's June already. It's like, I thought the year just started. Time goes really fast, except when you're a little kid, it seems to take forever. So, we should make the most of the time that we have, and the rising of a full moon can remind us of time, and to use our time wisely. So, in the ancient Vedic text, it describes, in the beginning of creation, there was only the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Narayan. There was no Brahma, no Shiva, no fire, no moon, no stars in the sky, no sun. There was only Krishna, who creates all and enjoys all. The splendor of the sun, which dissipates the darkness of this whole material world, comes from Lord Krishna. And the splendor of the moon and the splendor of fire are also from me. That's Krishna stating in Bhagavad Gita. He said, I enter into each planet, and by my energy they stay in orbit. I become the moon, and thereby supply the juice of life to all vegetables. So I'm not sure if any of you think about the weight of this planet, for example. If you try and lift a bucket of water, it's like it's really heavy, right? Just you fill a bucket up and then you go to lift it and it's like, whoa, this is heavy. It's just a small amount of water. This planet, and you see planes flying, right? It's like, God, how do they lift off, They've got so much weight in them, And this planet is enormous, and all the planets, astronomers map out as much as they can. The Vedic astronomers had it totally wired. But all the planets are all floating in space, and they're under the control of the Supreme Person. So Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami describes, it is understood that all the planets are floating in the air only by the energy of the Lord. The Supreme Person enters into every atom, every planet, and every living being. That's in the Brahma Samhita. And due to his entrance, everything is appropriately sustained. It is said in the Vedic hymns that because of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the sun is shining and the planets are steadily moving. Were it not for him, all the planets would scatter like dust in the air and perish. Similarly, it is due to the Supreme Personality of Godhead that the moon nourishes all vegetables. Due to the moon's influence, the vegetables become delicious. Without the moonshine, the vegetables can neither grow nor taste succulent. Human society is working and living comfortably and enjoying food due to the supply from the Supreme Lord. Otherwise, mankind could not survive. Everything becomes palatable by the agency of the Supreme Lord through the influence of the moon. I think that's really phenomenal. It made me wonder about the gardening that they do in some big cities, and they have it in multi-story buildings and artificial lights. Has anybody seen that? They turn big warehouses into food factories, basically. It's like, you know, trying to, in a big city like New York, right, it's really dense, trying to make it so vegetables and fruits, but primarily vegetables, can grow in the inner city. And I thought, you know, like just by artificial light, when they grow, but I wonder what sort of nutrient value is there. They're not seeing the light of the moon at all. Right? And so, you know, this is just a really amazing. Like we can't fight against material nature. You know, we can't conquer material nature. We should try and harmonize ourselves with material nature instead of fighting against it. And the moon shine, the sunshine, and fire of digestion, fire on your stove so that you can cook, fire, all of those things, the three things of fire, the sun and the moon, and of course the ultimate source, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Without any of them, we can't survive, right? So the spirit soul, we actually belong in a different world altogether. Beyond this manifest world, there's another world. It's a spiritual world. And that world is illuminated by the Supreme Person. There's no need for electricity or sun or moonlight. It's self-illuminated because of the Supreme Personality of Godhead's presence there. And that spiritual world, beyond this world, far beyond this world, is far beyond the moon planets also. And we should actually want to go home, back to our original source, and not kind of stumble around in the darkness of this material world. So when we have situations like this, they can remind us, full moon. The beauty of the full moon can remind us of our identity as being a pure spiritual being, that we're completely dependent upon the energy of the Supreme Person, not only to sustain us physically and mentally, but also spiritually. And the moon has a powerful influence on our mind. So in the old days, they used to have what they called was lunatic asylums, right? Lunar, moon, right? Because people would go more crazy with the full moon. None of us, of course. So it has quite a powerful effect on our mind. But from the Vedic texts, we can understand we're not our mind, we're not our thoughts, we're not our confusions, we're not our desires. We're an eternal spiritual being. And the moon can influence our mind, but we do not need to be influenced by our mind. Right? We can be influenced by the Supreme Person in the heart. And when we're influenced by the Supreme Person in our heart, then we can live in this world peacefully. And whether things are going well or not so well, whether our mind is driving us crazy or not so crazy, you know, whatever's going on, we can actually have that deep sense of peace in the core of our heart, knowing all things will pass. Everything that's going on, it'll pass. But I am an eternal spiritual being, and I have an original source who loves me unconditionally. And that's all we need. If we can come to be re-established in that relationship, then this human form of life has become perfect. That's what we should aim for. Namaste.